All right, seeing a lot of familiar faces as well as some new customers as well. So welcome everybody. Go ahead and get things kicked off. And really appreciate you joining us today for exploring newly released planning analytics features. And I'll be your host. This is Brian Moore, Planning Analytics Practice Lead. Oh yeah, I forgot we're gonna do web cameras on today, so we'll get that going for you. Rob, do you see me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, you guys get to see me sweat today. Okay, I'm the Planning Analytics Practice Lead here at PM Square, so I'm covering the entire United States. And I also host the Planning Analytics tutorial videos on YouTube, so hopefully you've had a chance to check out some of those tutorial videos on our channel. As far as who is PM Square, we'll keep this short and sweet. I'm sure a lot of you folks know who we are already, but founded as consulting services, implementation, staff aug, training. We've since branched into some new some product offerings as well as some new technologies. So initially we were an IBM shop only. As you can see, we've branched out into a number of different vendors, some exciting up and comers like Trifacta and Incorda, as well as some big time software vendors like AWS and Microsoft. We not only cover the organization of your data and the ETL, but also most importantly, the analytics. So making the data in your organization meaningful. And lastly, we've picked up a few awards along the way. Quick agenda, we're gonna run through PA server improvements, which are pretty minimal. A little bit of the PACs. And Pat's saying there's no screen. All right, I need to share my screen. I'm sorry about that, folks. Thank you, Pat, for bringing that to my attention.
Looks good now.
Okay. So there's the intro slide of PM Square. And agenda slide of going through PA server improvements, which have been minimal, a few PAfE or PACs improvements, and primarily we'll focus on PAW improvements. IBM continues to show that the big investment they're making is in PAW going forward. So they've, now that we're on version PAW 64, have just about completed all functionality formerly in Server Explorer that is now available in PAW. So PAW is looking to be the go forward administration tool, modeling tool, as well as end user tool for visualizations and dashboards in collaboration, of course, with PAfE, which offers that Excel functionality directly connected. So some improvements we'll go through, the new report ribbon in PAfE, indenting custom report hierarchy rows, in PAW, the brand new Model Workbench in PAW 64, a lot of changes to the PAW User Interface, synchronizing parameters in your TI processes in PAW, and lastly, some forecasting improvements. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. Happy to pause and address. So Rob Byerly is going to be proctoring those questions that you ask, and we'll try to get you answers for those. Okay, going over to IBM's website, what's new? I'd like to poke through here on the Planning Analytics server side, and as we see, the last 5 server releases, we poke into these. Most of them are just saying there are no improvements, it's just fixes. So for the technical folks in the audience, you can check into these, see what database parameters were deprecated. It's a little complex for this audience, but there'd be information within the website, and you can see if you're using any of those parameters and need to update them for the new server releases. All right, I'll close that up and skip down to PACs or PAfE. And as far as PAC's new features, we have some we'll highlight today are the ability to hide PA servers. So for those folks that have a lot of PA servers, it might be helpful to hide some of them. Here I just have three instances, and then within my main AWS instance, I have 3 databases available. So if I hit into options, I can scroll down on the IBM Planning Analytics menu and get down to see set hidden servers. Select that by which connection I'm looking at. So my main connection, I have 3 databases running, and I can opt to hide 24 retail. And if you wanted to unhide, you'd come back here into the same menu. So now keeps it simpler, because if I'm a customer with 10 or 20 servers or TM1 databases, this list can be arduous, and maybe you just want to focus if you usually interact on a particular database and need to ignore the rest. Next, as far as PAfE, there's a 60-minute timeout that was introduced in build 61. So keep an eye out for that. If you're going to be away from the tool for a while, you might get a timeout. Always frustrating, of course, but needed for security and compliance purposes. We have the new report ribbon group, so that's up in here. I'll open a example where that's relevant. So I'm going to right-click my income statement, and I'll do a quick report. And the new report ribbon shows you where it would appear in the tree. So it gives you different attributes and information about that particular report. I can also choose properties, which gives us a pop-up of what server it's on and whether you're using sandboxes or not. And lastly, most importantly, the highlight report. I've seen this in other products where it's helpful to highlight what cells contain formulas. And so by doing the highlight report, these are all the cells that are driving the actions as to how your Excel worksheet is connecting to the TM1 repository. All right, next up, there's a note of conformance compatibility between PAfE and Cognos Office Connection, or Cognos for Microsoft Office. So that is something to check into if you're using both products. There is a compatibility issue that you might want to check out on the PAX 63 footnotes here. So if you do use both products, you will run into compatibility issues running both at the same time. And if you do upgrade to PAX 63. I don't have any current customers that are using Cognos Office Connection, so not too much of a problem for us thus far, but if you are one of those customers, definitely check this out. And lastly, indented custom report hierarchy rows is helpful. Custom reports kind of translates to slice for our longtime TM1 customers. So let's go ahead and pop a custom report onto a new sheet. And so here we can see how the hierarchy rows for the accounts dimension are staggered depending on the accounts hierarchy. So before, or they might have been located flat. They are not expandable, of course, because it's a custom report, but it is nice to have those formatted properly for visibility purposes. All right, Rob, how are we doing? Any questions so far?
No, I'm not seeing any questions.
All right, thank you. Next, going over to PAW, which is the main event. Escape here and show you my PAW instance running on AWS. We do have some footnotes for cloud customers. PM Square doesn't run a cloud, IBM cloud instance, but for those cloud customers out there, please note that some long-awaited admin functions are now available. So we have the ability to create a TM1 database on cloud, and you must be in the new experience in PAW for that. So that's the upgrade of PAW 57. You need to convert into what they're calling the new experience as opposed to the classic. And that gives you the ability to create a new TM1 database on your own. No need for tickets to IBM. So that's wonderful to have that amount of autonomy. That's available in PAW 61, I believe. PAW 62, you then have the ability to delete TM1 database. So first they gave us the ability to create, and then in 62, the ability to delete. And in 63, we can rename a database instance. So some of those might be minor for folks that aren't creating or removing database instances, but for those that are, it can be very much of a hassle to have to file tickets with IBM. So that is no longer, and you do have that control. PAW Cloud administrators can also remove multiple users at once. Of course, that's a cloud feature, so we won't see it here, but just a little bit more power in the administration of your users there. All right, going back to the home screen, and so we notice, additionally, the administrative settings, we have timeout settings are enforced now, so 60 minutes for inactivity, and there's also a 24-hour timeout just in general. If you do leave your browser open overnight, come back in, or if you were working 24 hours straight, you would just get a general timeout because for security purposes, they'll require a new login every 24 hours. Next up, we'll jump into the brand new feature first. So PAW 64 dropped on May 18th for cloud customers, but we had to wait a while for the local folks, and we have that was released Thursday of last week. So we just got our PAW 64 release, and that was the reason that we ended up having to delay the webinar today, because we didn't yet have the software. So hopefully some of you had a chance to download it or checking it out. And the biggest feature, oh boy, might need to open a separate browser here because I don't want to lose all of this information. So let's duplicate that. And better yet, why don't I save the workbench for the end of the demonstration? I would really hate to have my saved or unsaved tabs close out on me for the rest of the demo. So Model Workbench at the end, and we'll jump into some more administrative features. So the look and feel here definitely drastically different. It's looking a lot more like Cognos Analytics. We continue to minimize the amount of that the toolbars are taking up on the screen. We want to maximize the amount of screen space that we have for visualizations and spreadsheets. We have the hamburger in the upper left is now a lot of the icons that were on the left-hand ribbon are now compressed up into this hamburger, so we can expand and collapse it. We have our applications and plans, reports and analysis, as well as the folders. We have the as far as the folders go, the ability to delete antiquated folders. So once we delete a user from PAW, their folder becomes unknown. It still holds all their content, but it just shows as unknown, and we do have to go out there and clean it up if we want to. This feature was previously unavailable, so it's good to be able to delete those, keep our folders a lot cleaner for users that have left the organization. On that same note, we can move their content. So if, as well as existing users' content, we have the ability to go ahead and go into any user as an admin, grab into their personal folder and share their content with the general organization in the shared folder. So that's nice to have that ability to migrate that content from the personal spaces to the shared spaces. All right, going through the user interface some more. We have the navigation tree. If we get into a modeling book. We have the databases, same icons as before. We do have the ability that if we turn off edit mode, that ribbon collapses. So it gives us that tiny little extra screen space, whether we're in edit mode or not. Then the database tree, open that up, and we see some, skipping ahead here, let me back up. Up on the overhead here, we've moved over the ribbon of what object we're on. So it used to be located in the middle. We're trying to move that over to the left to conform with Cognos Analytics so that they look similar. We have combined ribbon toolbars if we are within a particular, open up. All right, so if we have a view open and I tap on the view, I notice that the toolbar for that widget opens up, and these used to be stacked. Now we have them all along the same ribbon, so it saves us some screen space. Okay. We can click on tab names, get available actions. So this used to be a separate click, but now just a single click on the ribbon or the tab name gives us the same options of editing the title, deleting, or duplicating the tab. And lastly, we can view the content as tiles or as a list. So if I'm on my home page, I can choose to view these tiles. And also possible to I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that button, but the tile versus the list view is available. I think it's over in the folders actually. Okay. All right, let me skip into the data tree. New features here within the database view. We have the infinite scroll. They experimented with having 10 cubes show up at a time and then the ability to see more and keep expanding. That didn't go over well, so now we just have an infinite scroll if I need to go through all of my cubes. Also have the ability to search cubes if I have a lot of objects within that particular TM1 object. So cubes, we can just put in a quick search, income statement. And so that's going to be helpful to locate cubes, especially in larger systems. Within data tree, we can set to display members or not. So deep within each tree, there is the option to display individual members. Some folks don't use that, so we can turn that off. That's when we get way down deep. And we see members. So the option to have that ability or not is now available. And lastly, the ability to edit dimensions by right-clicking. So we don't have to open Dimension Editor. I can just straight import members directly to a dimension. Save us some clicks. And maybe if you're developing and find that one of your assumption cubes is missing a member, you can quickly pop it in there by just adding in those members with the single click from the tree. So none of those features are too meaty so far, but hopefully gives you a once over of the new interface and where everything's located and if anything's changed. Next, I'll get into some visualization changes. And so if I pop open my waterfall here, I see that I've got products waterfall going on, and I have total products and then all of my camping products that sums to a total. Total products not very relevant in this particular view, so I'd want to hide that. So if I highlight my waterfall, I have a widget or a icon in the menu to turn the totals on and off. So no more totals. That's much more applicable to this particular visualization. Next up in visualizations, I can format the values using a toolbar icon. So this new toolbar icon, the ability to format values, I believe is available for explorations, but now we can do it in our visualizations as well. If I highlight this, not a very useful format, looks like 600,000, 6 million, I don't know, it's too long. But if I format my values and say, let's do that in the millions, makes a lot more sense. 66.7 million, short and sweet. And next up, we'll do asymmetric calculations in explorations. So you'll have to think of a use case for these, just kind of adds more flexibility and customization. Probably on the time dimensions. If you have a year dimension and a month's dimension, let's stack those two together. So we have 2019 Jan through December, 2020 Jan through December. And so let's do a, we have enough width here. Maybe I want to do a last year's November and a this year's November calc. But that is involving stacked dimensions, so it makes it a little bit difficult to do on the fly. Well, I click my targeted column selection button right here. That's available for columns and for rows. And so now I can control click my November and control click my other November and right click to create a calculation. We'll say PY nov plus CY nov. Make that a calc, an addition calc, and say OK. And so now I have the 172 for payroll plus the 164 equals the 336. So again, stacked dimensions and the ability to do a calculation across those two. I guess that example doesn't highlight that we could have chosen any particular month we wanted to. So November last year plus December of this year is available as well. So any different combination across dimensions. Okay. Next up, let's see. That's everything for visualizations. Any questions so far?
Not seeing anything in the chat.
All right. We have MDX is available for cube views. So we're going to edit the MDX. And that brings up the MDX of what we've selected so far. So it looks pretty customized. So it'd be pretty complex to edit this MDX, but I'm sure there's some use cases out there. We've done several MDX edits based on the subset editor. So now we're just doing the same idea at the cube level. But in subset editor, we can use different assumptions cubes to drive our subsets for rows and columns. So that can be very helpful. And so now we have that available at the cube level. All right. Next, we're going to do parameters in Turbo Integrator. And so I'll exit out of my full screen. And come on. There we go. Flip it over to my synchronize action button. And give me one moment, folks. I'm going to get rid of a dog. Sorry about that. COVID world we live in, working from home. Okay, here we have a worksheet prepared to illustrate synchronizing your action buttons. This is a long-awaited feature for TM1 Web customers that had a lot of content built in TM1 Web and were reluctant to make the switch because they did not have the complete functionality available to them in PAW. Hopefully this gets us one step closer for those customers, if not all the way there. And so I've got 4 panes displayed here. We have a web sheet in the upper left, and that is displaying our product forecast. Upper right, for illustration purposes, we have the TI process we're going to be interacting with. In the bottom left and right panes, we have different explorations of the end results. So these are exploration or cube views in PAW, and so those will give you the results of the TI process. First things first, we'll turn on the edit mode, and from our toolbar, we'll create the action button. And so I will click on action button, and I'm going to close up that toolbar, rename our text to copy version, and I'm going to make sure and synchronize the object that I'll be working with. So by highlighting my web sheet, I can turn on the synchronize. Well, let's synchronize that just for the version dimension. So by turning that on, it's going to pick up the version from the PAW sheet and add it to the TI process once we configure properly. In my copy version, we'll highlight that, go into properties, and customize it appropriately. So this is going to run a process, and we'll turn that on. Select the Smart Co. It'll be the copy version process. And lastly, we'll go to our set parameters, and we'll just do the default for the copy from version. We'll do the default for a cube name. So we're going to be working with the revenue cube, and the budget will always be the source for the purposes of this example. And I want to turn off the prompt for the copy to version, and we'll synchronize it. It's the last option here. And it's going to synchronize with the version dimension. And if we had a hierarchy selected, or different hierarchies, we'd have to choose which hierarchy that it would be synchronizing on. So version, save that. And I'll tuck that away. And lastly, I want it to sync with the test version. So I'm going to flip my budget. I see all my budget data. It's 31,000 in total. Toggle that to the test. Oh, shoot. Gotta edit my subset. Okay. Nope. Actually, instead, yeah, subset. We just want to go with all. That's better. Okay. The test all and 2020 data. There we go. Okay. So we're going to move the 2020 budget into the test version. Lastly, I need to turn off my edit mode so that the button works. Click on our copy version, running, and it's successful. And did not choose to refresh automatically, so we'll do that. And then we have our test populated. It's populated in the upper left as well as the lower left and lower right. And the budget matches the test data. So very usable, beneficial feature to be able to synchronize your PAW selections to your TI processes, reduces the user interaction, increases the automation, and reduces the risk of error. All right, gets us to our last, well, I guess we have the model workbench as well, but second to last item is the forecasting book. And let's go to forecast. And improvements in forecasting include the ability to do multiple line previews. Here I have my camping data. I just wanted to populate a small data set for the purposes of the example. But I have two products lined up in the rows side, and then for all of my columns, I have January 2019 all the way through to December 2021. There we go. Now let's review the data set for a second here, just to see some insights as to what we're going to see. So for 2019, business as usual, we had some steady increases for these two products. So if we scroll from left to right, we're seeing some gradual increases. And then for the first product, we have a total meltdown in March 2020. And therefore, the rest of 2020 data was very irregular. I try to use this handy new feature from IBM for automated forecasting based on historical results. It's not very useful due to COVID. So very important that they've added the ability to ignore certain members from your historical data set. We see that the second product just kept performing business as usual, so for whatever reason was unaffected. And for 2021, we have all zeros, so that's what we're going to be modeling. So the first new feature we're going to highlight is highlighting two rows and the ability to do a preview of both at the same time. I'm going to forecast from Jan 2021 to December 2021. And since that's a very small data set, it will come back very quickly. And we see that first product very inconclusive on the prediction, right? It just kind of takes an average because it doesn't see any seasonality or trending. It's just too irregular, low prediction accuracy, and gives us the a flat line of about 145. If I toggle to the second one, the preview is accurate because we did have a trend before and during COVID, so we got a nice trend of that expected to continue. Little footnote on when we do demos on predictive data, it's hard to really showcase it well because we're using dummy data, whereas when we put it up against your model with real data, especially for 2019 actuals, we're going to get a lot better seasonality and forecasts, based on those historical results with the trends and the seasonality baked in. So doesn't tell a very good story from a dummy data set, but on real data it works well. So what can we do about this first data set? This is not useful at all. I can just do it the old-fashioned way and model it by hand, or I can choose to maybe ignore the rest of the data from March 2020 forward. Let's close that, and this time we'll just single select our irregular product A here. And I'm still going to forecast the Jan to December of 2021. We'll go into the advanced setup, and I have the choice to ignore after a certain time period or ignore individual records. Unfortunately for individual, this is the first iteration, so it seems kind of difficult that you have to select one item at a time. So hopefully they have a way to shift click or multi-select. But for the purpose of the demo, we'll just select Feb 2020 and ignore all actuals after that. Okay, let's go ahead and run the preview. And we'll go ahead and ignore COVID like it didn't happen, and then we get a nice continuation of the previous trend. So that's going to be very applicable to every organization I can think of as to whether to use COVID historicals versus ignoring it and just looking back to 2019. Of course, post-COVID, everything's different as well. So predictions will just be difficult in general for a little while longer here. But hopefully this automated prediction and the IBM algorithms can be of use to you with this ignore feature. All right, so we've got about 20 minutes left on the hour. I think we're just about done, but we'll show you the workbench and then turn it over to you for some questions. Brand new PAW 64. We have, let's get back to the home screen. And this is still in beta. So it's not available on our main page, but if we remove PA home and type modeling and leave, and that'll get us over to our Workbench beta version. Create or edit objects here. Oh, the Workbench. This is designed for our developers and hopefully makes your life a little bit easier, and has some modeling tools baked in there. So if we click on modeling tools, we have the ability to jump into the dimension editor, or cube editor, and create these objects quickly with a single click. So I can create a new dimension in either one of my servers. Likewise, a new cube or a new process. And the developers out there know that it can be a hassle digging all the way through one of these trees just to find like processes and right click. So it's nice to just have that one click capability. We have the creating new objects toolbar, so that's the first item. Next, we have the creating or modeling objects in Windows. We take a Windows approach. Let's put a test one out here. And so instead of the tabbed approach, we see we have well, one work. I guess call it the Excel approach, where we have one workbook and then worksheets within the workbook is what traditional PAW looks like. With Workbench, we have more of a tab, like a Google Chrome approach. So let's throw some dimensions out there, edit the dimension, and we see that a new tab is produced. So from like a Google Chrome or a browser perspective, I can tab back and forth. Let's get a cube out there and add the view. And so now we have 3 tabs, and similar to Windows, we are able to suppress the database tree here. Hopefully my sales cube comes up. All right, let's try a different cube. Of course, this product's in beta, so hopefully that's not being an issue. Brian Moore sales, add a new view. That's better. All right, with 3 tabs open, let's show you that similar to Microsoft Windows, I can orient the tabs and show multiple windows at the same time. So maybe I have my exploration on top or my cube view up on top, and then the dimension editor lower left and the process editor lower right. Most valuably though, which you won't be able to see here for us developers, is I can drag this onto my other monitor. So the ability to detach, pop that out into a floating window, much like Microsoft Windows and Chrome. And now I have a floating window that I can put onto my second monitor over here, have that as a full screen, and then be able to look up and observe my changes on these 2 panes. So obviously can't do that with current PAW, because current PAW just operates in one Explorer or one browser window. And unless you format that to display across multiple monitors, that's not really possible now. So this adds that capability to pop it out onto your other monitor. It's really nice. But with great features comes great responsibility. Anything happening on the detached must be saved before you detach and must be saved before you reattach. If I say return to Workbench, it's going to say, do you want to save changes? Probably not as applicable on process editor as opposed to dimension editor, but definitely in dimension editor, if I had this popped out, I was editing my dimension, we could run into trouble if we didn't save changes. So let's say I delete a customer. and that change would be instantaneous. So we wouldn't have an issue there. But other type of changes that don't take place or aren't saved automatically, that could be problematic when you want to return back to your workbench. All right, so that is the modeling workbench available in beta. Again, that's perspective equals modeling. So to get there, we just go from the home screen, remove PA-home, the word modeling. All right, so I hope you have some fun with that and find some value out of it. And that wraps up today's presentation. Thanks again for joining. And Rob, any questions from the audience?
No questions.
All right. Oh, I do see a question on my side. While executing the process via command button, it shows like the process execution status, process executing, or progress completed successfully. Is there a way to hide this? No, there's not. And that's by design. They do want to give the user some feedback. I was definitely one of the folks that requested more feedback from the TI process, because it can be, previously it was pretty invisible. So it didn't give us any indication whether the process was working or not. So I am appreciative that they've added that during the process. And that is the only question from the audience. And so we'll go ahead and put up our next events slide. And again, please continue to check out our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Have plenty of tutorials out there for PA tips and tricks, especially on the new features. And like and subscribe us, ask any questions over there or any comments. And here's my contact info if you want to ask any questions directly. Always happy to help out. Next events upcoming. June 24th, we have a Cognos Analytics upgrade workshop. So that's happening in 9 days. And I will be doing our next monthly PA webinar late July. We're still selecting a date on that. Feel free to reach out with any topics you want to see. Your input's valuable to us, and we don't get a whole lot of feedback from these presentations, but happy to custom tailor those to whatever the customer wants to see. So we're open to your feedback for suggestions, any topic matter you really want to focus on that we can help out with. We also have our Genius Bar if you want to book a 15-minute session with one of our experts. Happy to spend some time and check out your model and answer any particular questions you have that might be able to dig into in that short amount of time. Lastly, our big virtual event, our annual conference, Bacon, it's going to be virtual again this year, and that'll be August 25th and 26th. All right, we got some thank yous in the question toolbar. Thanks a lot for attending, and look forward to the next one. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.